So why is success rate so important? Well, I got asked a really good question and I wanted to ask you guys. So if you guys were to be given two options, and those two options were, do you want a success rate of 70% or do you want a success rate of 30%? I mean, it'd be pretty easy. You guys would be like, well, duh, Ricky, of course, I would want a success rate of 70%. Okay, well, now that success rate, you are focused on a trader that normally only makes 1.5% for every 1% they lose, meaning that their risk to reward ratio, their golden ratio, is a 1.5 to 1. So if you do not know what I mean, this is what we talk about. It's risk versus reward. Obviously, the higher your success rate, the less you need to have when it comes down to like your risk to reward, right? But when it comes down to that 1.5, yeah, 1.5, you're going to need to be at that 70% mark to be profitable by the end of the week. But let's say now you have another option. Now, let's say that you have a trader that is only successful 30% of the time. So your success rate is 30%. So just think about that. Almost every 3 trades, one of them ends up being successful, 2 end up not being successful. Does it sound like you? That's probably your success rate, right? But at that point, your risk to reward ratio needs to be much more significant, right? Because now your break even almost is going to be between that 2 to 3. So what does that mean exactly? And why is this important? Well, I got asked a very simple question, and it's, would you rather want a trader that has a success rate of 70% with a risk to reward of 1.5, or a trader that has a success rate of 30% but a risk to reward of 3.5? So very, very simple math, and I wanted to present it to you guys. So the first example, a success rate of 70%. So we're just going to do 10, a series of 10 trades. So 7 times the 1.5. So in a perfect world, this trader is going to make 1.5% out of those 7 trades because, again, that success rate is 70%. So you're going to be left with 10.5%. But that's a 70% success rate. So that means 3 times they got stop lossed out. With 1.5 to 1% risk to reward, that means that they lost 3%. So you're left at the end of the week or at the end of those 10 trades with a 7.5% net after the 70% success rate, but also the risk to reward of 1.5, 7.5, right? That's the first trader. Now, the other trader has a much higher risk to reward, but a much lower success rate. So now let's do this. That's a 3.5. And then this trader has a 30% success rate. So we just multiply it by 3. Now, great, 10.5. But guess what? That means out of those 10 trades, remember, it's not just one sequence. We're going to remove then 7%, right? Because then that person got stop lossed out because he had a 3.5 to 1, right? Every single time it's off of the denominator of 1, you can remove 7%, right? Because you got stop lossed out 7 times with a 30% success rate. That means you are left with 3.5%. You could see how significant, almost half, right? Almost half is what you're missing out on by having such a lower success rate. You might be like, well, Ricky, how could I change my success rate? There's nothing that I can do about my success rate. It is just what it is. Well, not necessarily, right? How many times have you over traded? How many times do you enter trades and you're like, why am I even in this, right? The whole point is for you to focus on quality trades, and focusing on those quality trades and quality criteria, then that is supposed to help you find your edge to increase your win rate. So you only take advantage of opportunities that truly meet your criteria, therefore increasing your win rate. And also, if you focus on a healthy risk to reward, imagine a trader that has maybe a success rate of 60%, but maybe has a risk to reward of 3, right? So let's go ahead and do a success of 3, and then we multiply that by a success rate of 60%. Now that's 8. Now, of course, not every trade is going to go according to plan, so you get stop lossed out 4 times with a 60% success rate. So you minus that by 4, you're left with 14. Again, a healthy win rate, but also a healthy risk to reward. Keeping a good balance on focusing on those quality trades, but also making sure that you find a proper edge on that trade, that the reward always outweighs the risk. This is why risk to reward is super, super important. And this is why we incorporate it in our free risk to reward ratio calculator. You can determine based off of your desired entry and exit and where you plan to cut losses, what your risk to reward is. And if you see that it's relatively pretty low, then maybe you just don't take the trade. But on top of that, you can also enter how many shares you want to buy, your overall position size. It will reflect here, and then how much money you could potentially make and how much money you could potentially lose. So therefore, even before you actually take the trade, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. All of the good, all of the bad, and also a useful tool of understanding your risk to reward. This is so crucial for beginners because, again, correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but for beginners in a market full of chaos, you just enter a trade because you can. You're not really focused on your criteria. You're not really focused on your win rate, and you're really not focused on your risk to reward. And hopefully this just gets you one step closer to those overall goals of being successful with a healthy win rate and a healthy golden ratio, providing more structure for someone that's just getting started. And again, this cheat sheet for the risk to reward is available for free. You guys can go to techbutsolutions.com or the first link in the description down below. You can click on more trading tools, and we provide it for you for both Mac users, or if you have a PC, you can download it right on over here. Other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below or send me a DM via Discord or via Instagram, and I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. I do trade live every single morning. If you ever want to tune on in, that's going to be that second link in the description down below. If you learn better by watching other people do, I think that you'd really find the live trading sessions very useful. It's 50% off right now, which is our biggest discount. So if you want to check it out, second link in the description down below. Appreciate your time. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.